I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah. I did the spin. Certification of compliance with open meetings law, Madam Clerk.
This meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Thank you. Okay, meeting agenda has been presented. Number 6, public comment. I've got one signed up for public comment. Mrs. Elmer, please state your name and address, ma'am. You'll have 3 minutes.
Linda Zilmer, Edgewater property owner, resident of the village of Birchwood. And my public comment is with regard to your agenda item, I believe it's 11B on the public records request tracking. As far as attending meetings, I know that Supervisor Hessel had requested that, and the concern was the amount of staff time that's spent on public records request. So the exhibit that's included in your packet today only includes a count of the number of records requests and not the amount of time. So I hope that staff are tracking not just the number of requests, but also the time it takes to respond and the reason for the request. I know that one request is not on there, and that was from the town of Edgewater. They requested CAD reports from the sheriff's department because of, we're trying to reconcile communication and response from ambulance. And it took quite a while for Edgewater to get the response, and then they would not be provided electronically, but they were the sheriff's department said if you pay $295 and come pick them up, you can have these reports. And then also I'm going to have to make 2 more public records requests. One of them obviously is for the number of hours that would go with the report I just talked about. And the second one is in the previous meeting, there was no notice that there was a 2024 budget presentation, and I gave you a copy of the agenda there. So there were a significant number of slides that we cannot see back here, and we could not follow along. So those are my public requests, number 18 and 19. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, Lynn, online for public comment? No one else here? Okay. Moving on then. Number 7, approval of our meeting minutes, August 10th, 2023. Mr. Duffy.
I move.
Motion by Mr. Duffy, second by Mr. Buckholz to approve our meeting minutes as presented. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, number 8, Veteran Service Department report.
Good morning.
Sir?
Good morning. Yep. So for the Veteran Service Office in August, we had 456 phone calls, 323 letters, emails, and faxes, and 185 office visits. We had 148 disability and pension claims to date, and retroactive payment of the veterans successful claims of $165,051.51 for the claims that were decided in the veterans' favor. Our training remains up to date, and other than that, we've been consistently very, very busy. So.
Yeah, I heard our finance officer talk about the Veteran Service Department, Gary, and you need more staff. Is that your request for 24, or what is it, sir?
I would like a full-time position. Right now, we hired an individual to do split between the ADRC and Adult Protective Services and the Veteran Service Office 50% of the time. And that is not happening at all. And it's been uneven now. So Nicole is the administrative assistant, and she went through her training. She's done very well. She does very well. Where was I going with this? But it's just I need more help. I need more assistance in there. Splitting this is not working. Like I said, she started in January. I want to say she was hired in January by the county to do this. It took about 45 days to 60 days with Health and Human Services before I got her. The first date of payment was March 6th, is when she come on my payroll. And the agreement of the 50-50 is just enough to keep her above board with her accreditation. She has to maintain 1,000 hours, over 1,000. I had it set out at 50% of 1,010 hours for the county. She's not going to make that this year. Despite her training, her work, her efforts, it is not her fault. It is basically, the time spent. Now, I think I can justify this with the state. Look, she didn't start until March, but even then, I ran the report. It's half baked. I haven't done all my math on it, but from March, and like I said, she was hired in January, but from March 6th, she worked 1,283 hours and 1,283.5 hours from March 6th to the date I ran this report of September 9th. Of that, the 50% that I got was 407.83 hours. You can see how lopsided it is. Our office is really, really busy. There was a change in law back in August. It came into effect. We had to have this stuff in by October for a good portion of it, but it is still coming. It is still coming. The toxic exposure that was opened up for the veterans that have served this country it's going to be a long wave. It's like a tsunami, and it's still coming, and it's going to keep coming.
Gary, is this administrative assistant housed in your office, kind of
Yes.
off campus or where you're at?
Yes. Yeah. She has, and I set it up so she had two different places. One, she works at the receptionist desk, if you will, when you come in. And that works for greeting people, but it doesn't work for talking. A veteran comes in with health or personal issues. That's not the place to stand out in the lobby and talk about it. So I had a second office that is set up for her.
You have room in your space down there?
Pardon me?
Do you have room in your space to add a second office?
I do. It is all set up. So she has really two working spots for the county. The issue here is not the room, it's not the space, it's not the budget. It was in there. You asked me last month, how my budget was going to be affected, but does it work? And I told you last month that if it remains what it was based off last year, which was carrying 2 full-time positions, I'm good. I don't have any increases to speak of, really, other than the cost of living that is going across the board for the rest of for the rest of the departments. So, yeah, basically, I'm at the point where I really need her full-time, not part-time, and if it's not, I need to get 90% of the time out of a day and 10% for Health and Human Services until I get caught back up.
Mr. Alvarado, are we addressing that?
Yeah, that's the budget for 2024 includes that position.
Okay.
It's
being worked. It's just a matter of actually.
No, I understand your need, Gary. Thank you.
So, yeah.
Yeah, we've talked to Gary, we've talked to Nicole. When veteran service was shifted down to Oasis and then ADRC, we did try to share staff and share like central admin, but we've given it a shot. Gary's expressed his feelings on it. So Nicole's doing a good job and has trained. So the plan is budget's approved and all that. Nicole would move to full-time veteran service, and we'll have to address the admin assisting reception for ADRC.
I'm glad you brought that to our attention, Gary.
They're currently working. Health and Human Services currently working with having another person come in, but like I said, we got behind in the beginning, and we haven't caught up. So,
okay, thank you. Anything else for Gary? Good.
Thank you for that.
Yep. Okay. Moving on then,
Is there anything else we can do for you, Gary, over there?
Right now, no. Honestly, the biggest thing that the office needs is like I said, is getting that full time. That would relieve a huge amount of, weight.
all right,
Push that through quicker, get it full time?
Take a look at it.
yeah, let's do that. All right, thank you, Gary. We appreciate that. Okay, number 9, Information Technology Department report. Mike?
Morning. I didn't file a written report. Most of our duties were help desk related, just lots and lots of individuals asking for assistance, moving, installs, and so forth. We have been spending some time on prepping for in the sheriff's department, their video system. We've got to replace about 60 cameras, and that's going to require most of it's going to happen next year, but there's a lot of prep work we're getting ready for now. It's a budgeted project already. It's budgeted for this year. It may have to spill over into next, but we'll work with Andy and Mike on if there's any financing changes there, but that'll be going on for several months. Other than that, right after this meeting, I'm heading out to the Oasis to help Gary's staff move around a little bit. So we're doing what we can to help them.
Good.
That's
Thank
it.
you, Mike. Anything for Mike?
Have you been contacted by the highway department yet? They're for virtual meetings, they need a bigger TV out there.
Oh yeah, I talked to Mr. Pino just a couple days ago. He basically just wants a monitor on the wall, and I kind of made some recommendations. He doesn't need anything fancy like for conferencing. It's just to display, so I'll help him get that set up.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks for all you do, Mike. All right, moving on then. Human Resources Report. Rose is in here. Is she online?
Nope,
Lynn?
Rose
But
is
she
off.
provided a report?
Yep, Rose is off this week. Her report's in the packet. So you can see that we're keeping up on hiring. There's still some open positions that have been open for a little while that we're doing more talking about a different approach. Patrol superintendent at highway, we did interviews this week for that. There's no announcement, but Mr. Pino has I think made a decision, or will be making a decision. Children, youth, family, that's been open for a while. Things are going well there, I would say, though. We still have a contracted person in that position that we're very comfortable with, and it's working budget wise. We're still working out the kinks not the kinks, it's just we have very young staff in our child protective service area, and we have a seasoned person contracted to supervise that. And so that, we're not in a rush to fill that person unless we can fill that position, unless we can fill it with the right person. So we're fine with that. EMS, we've got a couple additional hires there. And then, like we mentioned at the last meeting, we have interviewed for the part-time and full-time positions in the clerk of court, and hope to make a hire soon there. And then the mental health therapist is still open, but we are doing some talking there because we've had some mental health challenges in the jail, and our contracted agency has not been providing us a mental health person. So that might change our approach to the mental health therapist out of the human services area. But otherwise, we filled in a lot of the gaps in our overall operation over the summer.
You don't mention about the highway,
Yeah, it's not going to be a net increase in employees necessarily, but the state DOT has approved Sawyer County for a night watch position, which means I can't remember the dates, but roughly November through the winter. November, we would have somebody on duty from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. Wednesday through Sunday, what they call a night watch position. They would work, if there's no weather events, they would do work in the shop to get ready for the next day. If there is weather, they can be out responding to icy intersections or accidents, or starting to move snow until the rest of the crew gets called in later in the morning or earlier in the morning. But they would work primarily, if they're out working on roads, it'd be on the state highways primarily.
Okay.
And that's partially funded by this.
Yeah.
We are not fully staffed, but we're fuller staffed than we were. Yes.
I mean, yeah, that was my
females
question.
are all
Do
here.
we house anymore in Barron or is
No, we have
everything's
no,
here? Good.
everything's here.
Good.
Yeah, we're running about, I mean, the good news, and it really doesn't, it's not a number that changes the staffing levels, but pretty consistent now for the last 6 months, probably more. We've been at about 70 inmates, whereas a year ago we were 90 to 100.
Okay. Thanks, Andy. Any questions on HR? All right. Appreciate your help there, Andy. Okay, County Clerk Department report. Madam Clerk.
Let me increase this a little bit. The desk activity has been primarily between notary public and increased marriage licensing activity. So that has kept Lisa pretty busy. She's off this week. So we have had a few walk-ins on that. Our absentee inner envelopes have arrived for the new election process. We're still waiting quite a few other items. They're not, the printers are a little slow on getting them to us, but they assure we'll have them before the 24 election season. The hangar activity is identified there. We've got a couple hangars that will run out of their extension on their lease for 2024. We're working on those right now to get their paperwork ready so they're done in plenty of time and on the county board agendas. And let's see, I did put in, we had quite a few handouts that we were giving to people for different topics, and it just got a little bit clumsy at the counter. So I created a handout. All of our information is on this trifold brochure now that's out in the brochure holders on the hallways. So that has information on services that we do provide. And when we don't provide them, like passport services, it tells them where to go to get the information. So it's become pretty handy where we hand out one document instead of 3 or 4. And let's see. I think I go back to this one, don't I?
Nice handout.
It is.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, and then the public records request report, that is new. Andy has asked that we keep track centrally one location on where we get all the requests. It is missing some. Number one reason, because we started tracking in March. So, you know, we missed some earlier ones. And if public records requests go to other people other than me, I don't know about them unless they send them to me and then start getting me involved. So it will occasionally miss some, by all means. But staff, department heads are getting a lot better at sending them over my way so they can get documented on a manual spreadsheet. This is a manual spreadsheet we use to track everything. It's not a software program that some counties have. It does not track hours for addressing public records requests. What I have seen, though, is that one public records request can go between 5 people back and forth, and I do not know how we could track time on that when it's bouncing back and forth between staff members to do their part, back to me, back to another staff member, back to Andy, and back. I don't see the hours being tracked. The only time I know that we have hours is when we bill someone. And the sheriff's department, I cannot believe the number of hours they put in records requests. It could be anywhere from 15 hours for one staff person plus another 20 by another deputy on a single records request. So those are the ones that we start charging for. But we pulled this together just so that the board can start seeing where our records requests share our time. The sheriff's department by all means gets a lot of them. My department gets a whole lot of them. And we are tracking the times when we do get attorneys involved. I do not know the cost of how much attorney time gets involved in any records request. But if we do know that we've contacted Atolis, we document that in the report.
Right.
So this is the same information, just sorted a couple different ways. We can show records requests by department, by the person receiving the request, by the requestor, or any way you want it manipulated. So it's just a first report, and we plan on doing these quarterly just so that the admin sees the activity. And then if you would like one full at the end of the year at the county board level, we can provide one at the county board.
That'd be great, Lynn. Thank you. I know that many of us are going to the Wisconsin Counties Association meeting coming up starting Sunday, correct? Mr. Schluter, you're there as well, I think. Andy?
Mhm.
I would like us to get together with people from the WCA regarding records requests and what really is the process.
Yep.
Okay. And where does the public know where to come to request public records?
We have it on our webpage.
Okay.
And we have a form there now that they can use to request information if they decide to use it. They come in all different forms, electronic, verbal,
Okay.
drop something off.
Yeah, I would say in general, they don't, because there really isn't. I mean, every department might be a custodian of a different record. So
Yeah.
part of the reason we did this, I mean, we had some issues last year, earlier this year, with people not realizing what they had had received was an actual records request. Like our media member, I remember the Milwaukee Journal was asking for some information from the medical examiner, and it kind of fell through the cracks because he didn't realize they were asking for records based on the way they worded their. So that's why I asked Lynn to kind of track this and also be our gatekeeper, so to speak, so that everybody lets her know, so that we can make sure we got the request. She can keep track if we followed up on it and have completed the request. So that's kind of the primary reason, is to make sure we're keeping track of these. And also sometimes, well, more so for Lynn, maybe with some of the election stuff, maybe what somebody's asking for, we've already put together or pulled, and we can speed things up that way.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you look at open records, the sunshine laws in Wisconsin, records requests can come into anybody. They can come in a lot of forms. I mean, probably should have a category on here of unknown, because person doesn't have to give a name, or we've tried to train the employees to know that. Also, that it's not, it doesn't matter why they're asking. If they ask for a record, it's our job, and if it is a public record, to give it to them. And there are some that probably fall through the cracks. I know we've had some in the last couple of weeks where we've met with the media and things and just handed over the records, and that is not logged in these either. So
I
And
think
we also have
Lynn, I
seen-
think the county board needs to be aware of how many hours we're putting in on these requests, because that is
Well, I can keep track of when we bill them out for something, but
Yeah.
as far as what we also saw is that a public records request would come into 5 different people on one single email.
Yeah.
Unbeknownst to some of us, somebody else was already working on a part, and it starts a big snowball. It gets very, very confusing when multiple people get involved in a records request, and then they're answering the same question twice, or trying to pull the same information twice because they don't know somebody else is working on it.
yeah, and I think we can ask. I'll ask Lynn to try to track time. I know we do track time. Like we can
When we bill it.
we can bill for locating a record.
Okay.
But like the sheriff's department's a really good example. Like it might take them a little bit to locate the record, but if they have to go through and redact confidential information, we can't bill for redaction, those costs, so we haven't been tracking them.
okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any questions, concerns for Lynn? All right, moving on then. Number 12, County Administrator's Report.
Sure,
Mr. Alvarado.
just try to get these typed up for the county board meeting, because
Thank
usually
you.
things change by then. So I'll just run through courthouse project, the construction project. Obviously, we're using it. Things are going well. A lot of the punch list items have been completed. There's still a few things left to address. Some of the AV has just temporary equipment in place until what we ordered comes in. This room still has quite a bit of work into it, as well as both courtrooms. So we're still getting invoices in on that. We are working with the owner's rep to help us navigate some issues with the contingency fund and some things that were not in the bid docs that maybe should have been, and was where a lot of the contingency money went. We had a meeting earlier this week with the owner's rep, the construction manager, and the architect to get him, essentially it was fact-finding mission for him So we're still working through that. As far as projections on where we're going to end up financially, looks like we'll end up we're over budget, but no more over budget than what I told you in June when we asked for the additional contingency dollars. We're still working through those. We won't get a final settlement with the construction manager until we get through all the owner's rep conversations and hopefully negotiate some sort of compensation for some omissions in the project. There is also, so there was the construction manager contract, which was the $8 million plus, and then we had our own responsibilities of 1.5 million-ish. That was like the acquisition of Fifth Street, and the architect fees were in that account, the utility relocates, the asbestos. So we are over on that within what we already told you about. The asbestos costs more, the utility relocates cost more. Office furniture was in there. The AV is one of the things that's actually under budget yet. Office furniture is over budget, and then when all the furniture's been put in place, I mentioned last month that for whatever reason there were about 20 chairs that were not included in the furniture in the judge's office and the tables in the new courtroom. So on the courtrooms up and running, we've moved chairs from other rooms temporarily to get that accomplished. And we went through the furniture for the judge, and Public Works okayed a couple $1,000s just to move ahead and get that taken care of so the new judge can fully utilize her office. So it's coming together, but we don't have any final numbers for you on that. Any questions on new construction or the courtroom? Okay.
No, I think we're-
Personnel, we've kind of covered that with Rose's report. Union negotiations are done. We're good there for the next couple of years. At the finance meeting, most of you were there, went through the budget. I just wanted to point out that Mike and Rose and I, he talked about a 5% increase in the budget for health insurance. So that's where we expect to be within the 5%. But we also expect either one of two things, to improve the health insurance offerings to the employees right now we offer, this is one plan. We're working with the broker consultant on if we do fully insured to be able to offer multiple plans, one with a lower deductible cost, one with a higher deductible. Let the employees have some choice. The other thing is we are working with them on what a self-insurance plan would look like. Because we've been running the last couple of years at only 75-80% of use. So that means we're paying the insurance company above and beyond what the actual health insurance costs are. So they're out, we're getting bids on fully insured right now, as well as putting together what self-insurance will look like, and expect to have that. We expect all that to be within what we projected in the budget. In addition to that, we're working on the rest of the employee benefits, and we'll be proposing to switch for 24, switching from vacation sick leave for the employees to a PTO system. They talked.
You have a plan put together for that, because we went through that before.
Yep. Yeah, we've got a couple of drafts of it,
Okay.
how it would look like. And I kind of went down this road last year and stopped because we decided to look at all the benefits, because we're looking also at, how, the cost of our health insurance. Is there anything we can fit in for right now? Dental, vision are voluntary, life insurance is voluntary. We're going through the whole thing and trying to put together an offering that's better for the employees. But yeah, we'll have the proposal for PTO in October with all the employee benefits put together. I think you've all heard the budget process. We need to talk about that. A lot of ordinances right now that we're trying to work through: animal control, human health hazard, nuisance updates, zoning, highway access. Those are just taking a lot of time. We're trying to do some of those in-house so we don't have to incur council time. When we get them drafted and kind of put together, then we'll have council review those. A lot of activity in the criminal justice area with our work with Justice Point, because of them getting the deflection grant. That's going to result in probably 3 more staff that they'll bring in for that program. And then we have the diversion that they were already doing that the county was funding, and then the TAD grant also. So a lot of moving pieces there. because of that, we're trying to open up additional office space for them in the building. If they were to go outside the building to find office space, that would be part of our contract. We have to pay for that. So at least if we can keep them in-house, we don't have to incur any additional costs for their work. So there is going to be some shuffling of offices happening to accomplish that. Should be somewhat minimal. I think we just a matter of getting through it. Maintenance has been working right now on getting human services all over to the human service side. So the admin and finance people that have been right next to our admin area will be moving over to the human services area, which will be nice to have them all in one place. Then we could be like a trickle down effect through the rest of the building. Ambulance, we don't have all the feedback, but we have met with all the Washburn County towns and proposed the new rates for them. And then we also went to the town of Edgewater meeting Monday or Tuesday night. I think we've all heard about their concerns. We're following up with some information they requested, and their primary request or issue is that the town of Edgewater residents pay roughly $89,000 through the apportionment for the county ambulance service. But they contract with the Birchwood Four Corners. I think it's between $60,000 and $70,000 is what they paid in their request. Every township gives directives to our dispatch as to who they want dispatch for emergency services. This is my primary fire department. This is my secondary. Same thing with ambulance. Most of the townships, it's Sawyer County Ambulance. Town of Edgewater, they want the Four Corners ambulance dispatch for their calls because of that contract. So we can't not assess the taxpayers in Edgewater. We can't take them out of the apportionment just for the ambulance because it's a countywide service. So they've asked us to consider paying their fees to the Four Corners service. So we went down and answered questions. When we put the budget together, I've been pretty upfront with them and here that we're not going to propose that. If that's going to be I think more of a board decision to put it in there if you want. I see some issues, and I don't. At the meeting, they bring all true statements that their Four Corners ambulance can get to most of that town quicker than our ambulance can get there. That's their choice. But the ambulance service is not equitable anywhere in the county. In most places. I mean, if you live in Connors Lake or you live in Edgewater or even if you're out in east parts of County B, it's going to be a 20-25 minute time at minimum for an ambulance to get there. If you live in Hayward, they'll be there in 5 minutes. It's just, but everybody pays the same for it. Same thing and it's, I don't want to say it's a slippery slope, but it is somewhat precedent. I mean, not all citizens in the county get any benefit from zoning. We have some towns, a couple towns, I think, that do their own zoning, or the city of Hayward does their own. Police services, sheriff service is different. If you live in Hayward, you have a police department. Libraries, if you live close to the library, you get way more service out of it than you live further away. So that's part of my rationale. But we are trying to keep in communication with them, and I believe they'll be attending a future meeting to lobby for that to be in the budget.
But Andy, we've also built ambulance garages closer and trying to get to these outlying areas, correct?
Yeah,
I mean, that was the reason for the Ojibwe station, that we be more centralized and meet those needs out there.
It is, and there's even, I mean, you can't build it. I mean, it wouldn't be good fiscal sense to build enough of them to make it more equitable so that the ambulance is 10 minutes away from everybody.
Right.
So it's just, there's no. Yeah.
Yeah, can you give us an update, Andy, on that tourist rooming house
My update would be
subcommittee?
that topic is heating up. I mean, I think as the committee continues to meet and the information is getting out there, we're hearing from tourist rooming house owners who are concerned or unhappy with some of the discussion at the committee. And there's also the people that are in the community that live next door to tourist rooming houses that have voiced their concerns and then we did, I think all the town or all the county board and number of staff received the communication from the towns of Round Lake, Hunter and Spider Lake, as well as the lake associations in those areas, encouraging or asking that, I don't know how to summarize this. They're concerned about the lack of regulation over short-term rentals and hoping to see some ideas that minimize conflicts in the neighborhoods and in the community. I mean, just in general, which, you know, so I mean, I think from our, when the staff went to the committees to talk about this, part of the concern is what these types of communications that we were getting, somewhat informal, but definitely the chatter, as you would say, indicated there were issues. Staff was getting more phone calls, sheriff's department, I mean, just questions, but more complaints coming in. It probably isn't a real good way that all those complaints have been logged, but there's minimal things we could do as well because there's not any regulations to enforce. But it is taxing to staff. Sheriff's department gets more calls and zoning and human services. That was part of the reason to bring it to the board to create the ad hoc committee. So I'm just hopeful that the ad hoc committee is, kind of accruing all the concerns and issues and taking all the input. And then, I mean, there's been some discussion on septic sizing as one potential solution, but also I'm hoping there a little bit expanded discussion on that. And here's other things that are within, there's limited ways the county can regulate or address short-term rentals because of what exists in state law.
State statutes.
Yep.
Yep. And a good comment came up during the finance committee that we are an agent of the state.
Yep.
Regarding this.
We are an agent, so our public health, sanitary, and environmental health people are responsible to license accommodations like hotels and including short-term rentals and restaurants. Honestly, I just think I would say this has been pretty explosive growth in an industry that regulation just hasn't kept up with.
Right.
And so now we're trying to, it's kind of like you can't put the genie back in the bottle. So now what do you do about it but emotions are gonna run high in this, and the committee should come out with some of this. These are our recommendations, which will be then sent back to either human services or zoning, most likely, on what can be done, and then the board will have to decide.
Because we're an agent of the state, Andy, are the licensing or permit fees regulated by the state, or are we restricted by state statutes on what we can charge?
No, we can set those fees ourselves.
Okay.
Yep. We just can't. What's that?
I mean, that should come back to zoning.
Oh, it will. Yep. And the ad hoc committee can't do anything but make recommendations back to the zoning committee. I'd say zoning or human services, because some might be licensing issues and some might be zoning issues.
Because I know, well, on that ad hoc committee, there's 2 zoning members on there. And then the fact that Jay oversees it. So that's why I think zoning would have the major concern over that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
Good.
And really, the majority of our contact with rooming houses now, I would say, is through our environmental health people for the licensing as being an agent of the state. And that's, I think Jay's expressed his concern. There are some counties, I believe, that do these through a conditional use process. We don't, to go back and do 550 some conditional use processes would be taxing, but that might be where we end up too. Yeah. I've tried to start digging in and just looking at, this is not a Sawyer County problem. When I've talked to my colleagues, all the counties up in this region are having a growth in short-term rentals. And we talk about everything from the impact on neighborhoods to the impact on the housing market. What's that doing to housing values and the ability for people that want to live and work here? That's a market factor though. So I think this conversation here is more about the community impacts and
Environment
and that type of thing. But this is no different than what's happened in Door County and in Walworth County, like Geneva and Oneida County, around Eagle River and Minocqua. Anytime there's demand for people to want a vacation, there's growth in tourist rooming houses. So it's a difficult subject because there probably is gonna be unhappy people at the end of it, either way.
Oh, we figured that when they can
Yeah.
get started up there. You're not gonna make everybody.
No, and like Polk County, and I haven't looked to see what they adopted. Polk County adopted some regulations in this area and they're already in court over those. So that's probably, I mean, that's
Good.
in the comments, so,
Thank you. Very important subcommittee we put together there.
yeah. And
Bill, Sandy, do you have one?
I would also make a plug too. I know the tourist rooming house individuals that have been commenting at the meeting, they want to talk about the economic value of them. And I would just say there is no secret of the economic value of those rooming houses to the community. I mean, we can look at the amount of room tax that the CVB is getting. We can look at our own sales tax and track some of that back to the growth in tourist rooming houses and the impact they have. And there are now businesses that support the rooming house market. So to me, that's not really a dispute. I mean, there is a lot of economic benefit to having that capacity here.
Okay, anything else, Andy? You wanna?
My computer keeps falling asleep, so. Let me see if there's anything else. Broadband, so we have done some work there. We do have a partial broadband map put together that the providers that we provided ARPA funds to have given us their information. We, Ed Peters, and been working with the Surrey County LCO Economic Development Corporation has a broadband subcommittee that I'm on with Ed and Leo Carlson from Novato and Mark Lundeen from WAJB. So we've been tracking the BEAD funds. We did have, which is the $1 billion that the state of Wisconsin is getting, that they'll start granting out probably after the first of next year. But we had a meeting we invited all the providers in to sit down. So we met with Mosaic and Novato, Bevcom, Charter was there. I think that's all that showed up, just to get a feel for what they were planning to do. We don't have the ARPA dollars we did before to give out $100,000 chunks of money to motivate them or offset or help them get grant dollars. But I guess what I've told the Economic Development Committee is that our approach is going to be, we'll support all projects going ahead. Anybody that's applying for grant dollars to improve or lay out broadband in the county, we're not going to pick, which areas they go into. If they're going after the money, we'll provide them a letter of support. It may be that we sign a participation agreement that we'll put $500 if they get the grant, because in most of those applications, there is a better scoring system if you're a financial partner rather than just a letter of support. But even a nominal dollar amount counts. Doesn't need to be $100,000. It can be $500. So we're helping that. But looking at the map, a lot of the areas in the county are filled in. The Hayward area is very well covered. And now Novato essentially has built from the North County line all the way down through Winter over to Price County. Mosaic's coming up from Birchwood to just south of Hayward. Bevcom is covering the Radisson Coudray area up to the reservation. So there's going to be some holes. Just in conversation with those providers, it's unlikely you'll ever see everybody in the county have a fiber to their house. It's just some people are too remote, or if you're at the end of a dead end road and a half mile back in the woods, it's not feasible to take fiber back to you. But I think things are improving, and there's a lot of good things happening in that area. I mean, just with the grants that the county put ARPA dollars into, I think there was like $35 million in state grants that came to those providers just for broadband in Sawyer County. And yeah, I think that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it for this month.
Okay,
Well, I know Bevcom is, they're running their cable big time.
Yep.
I mean, I've already have it run up to my house. It's just not hooked up, but they're going strong down there.
They are.
So.
No, I guess the other thing I'll mention too, we did have, Ron and I met with representatives from LCO yesterday, just to kind of cover, I think we need to have good communication with them. We covered some road jurisdiction issues, the tribal taxation issues, broadband. couple months, we'll be talking about the joint
Law enforcement.
law enforcement grant and how that's gonna work, so just, we wanna have good communication and back and forth, and they've expressed to us some of the things they're working on and things they'd like to see from us, so we're just gonna try to keep those lines of communication open.
Okay, anything else for Andy?
You on carbon tax?
Carbon credits.
Report on carbon tax, so I did my piece with them last month as far as we had to go through like a list of questions to give them information so they can market the project. Steigerwald Land Service has been contracted by, the company's called, the carbon company is now called Anew instead of Blue Source. They changed their name. So Anew has contracted with Steigerwald to establish the growth plots on the county forest. So they're putting in right now 331 plots. And essentially they drive they pick a plot out of area of land. I would say it's probably usually, when I've seen them, it's about the size of this horseshoe here, or maybe a circle. They put a stake in the middle of it and they measure out so many feet and establish it. And then they mark the trees. And then they use that throughout the county forest to measure the growth over the next period of time. And that's how they determine your growth rate to determine the credit value. So right now, the counties that have signed on to this, including myself, we're all waiting to see. Bayfield County is up for sale. Like their credits are out in the market now. And so to see how that sale actually happens and when they get a check. They are 6 months behind. So we're probably looking at another year to 18 months based on how long it took for Bayfields to get to the market.
So carbon credits are not in our revenue stream for 24.
No,
Go ahead, Ron.
So where they put these markers, and if it's the size of a horseshoe ballpark, and they're gonna watch the growth, so obviously we're not gonna be cutting in that area. If we're cutting in the generator, it's gonna be that growth spot.
yeah, I believe so. I didn't ask Greg that question. Greg is relayed that information to the committee yesterday that there was 330
That's
of these. But that's what I would assume, yeah, that they've already worked out where our sales are already planned. Yep. Right.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Very good report. All right, moving on to future agenda items. I think maybe Lynn, in October's meeting, we should give a report on our WCA conference we attend. Okay?
Just be in on 24.
Yep. Anything else guys can think of? Mr. Schluter? Oh, that's a very good question. The transit manager has retired. So the transit board has selected an interim manager, which was the lady in the finance department at transit. She's accepted that position. And the posting for a new transit manager should be out. If we haven't seen it, it's going out shortly. So that's the plan. And I do have something on the county board next week acknowledging her years of service. So, Ron, how many years?
Not sure.
Got to be double digits. Yeah,
I would say.
I want to say 12 or 13.
I do too.
I would say more than that. With Pete Sanders. Yeah.
Okay, so that's
You need to try.
the update there. Yep.
Track that down, and she should receive something. I mean, she put a lot of work out there.
Thank you, Ron, and she will. Okay. Anything else for agenda items? If not, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.